Section 86(2)(e) requires that municipalities within 12 months of the coming into force of the MGA establish a procedural bylaw. This is a really important part of meeting conduct and procedures and other procedural issues for council. And municipalities may have some really good meeting practices that they adhere to and have adhered to for a very long time. And with the coming into force of the MGA, municipalities are now required to codify those procedures in a bylaw. Municipal Affairs has done some really great work on a model procedural bylaw, and there is one online that is current to January 2021. It would include any recent amendments to the MGA, and the template model procedural bylaw includes specific references to MGA requirements. So it's a really good tool to use to make sure that you're adhering to all the requirements in the Act, and it also has excellent sample language related to a number of different areas. There is language in that model bylaw around meetings of council, schedules, notice and meeting types, meeting procedures. So a sample agenda is in there, rules related to quorum and voting that match the requirements in the MGA, meeting conduct, details around motions and debate, and then some requirements and language around committees of council. Having a up-to-date procedural bylaw in place can take a lot of the guesswork out of procedures and activities associated with council meetings and council conduct. If you are a municipality that has not yet enacted your procedural bylaw, it is a good idea to have a look at the model procedural bylaw from Municipal Affairs and first identify which provisions are required under the MGA, and then compare all the other provisions around motions, debate, committees, meeting conduct to the current practices and policies around council meetings and activities that exist. So you want to make sure you are enacting a bylaw that works for your municipality and is in line with the preferred protocols and operating procedures for your council. And once you have identified those provisions that you want to include and that you need to include in your procedural bylaw, as the CAO, you can assist council with drafting language and walking them through the bylaw adoption process. In addition to all the requirements around procedure within the Municipal Government Act, there are additional requirements in the procedural bylaw regulations. So here we have a excerpt from the regulations that deals with notice of regularly scheduled meetings and notice to members of council. So while you are working on your procedural bylaw, make sure that you've got all the requirements of the Act and the regulations within that one bylaw. This will help with compliance, but it will also help with efficiency. So as CAO, when you are scheduling meetings and preparing your notice to the public of meetings, you want to be fairly confident that you've got all the procedure required outlined in your bylaw. So instead of flipping through the Act and regulations each time you are preparing a notice or walking council through a particular procedure, you can simply refer to your procedural bylaw rather than the various provisions of the Act and regulations. Through the procedural bylaw, council is required to establish a code of conduct that addresses expected behavior from council members, members of the public, and other delegates. This can be really helpful for limiting or addressing improper conduct and behavior of either council members or members of the public. Without the code of conduct spelled out, it can be difficult to address behavior because you don't have a objective criteria that is specific to the conduct expected during meetings. So having an express guideline that requires meeting participants to refrain from speaking disrespectfully, to refrain from using offensive language, and refrain from shouting. These seem like pretty standard and reasonable behavior expectations, but having them spelled out in a code of conduct will assist council and you as the CAO with dealing with improper conduct. A council adopts a formal resolution or bylaw by proposing a motion as part of the approval process by council. Simply stated, the purpose of a motion is to set the process in motion by which council can deliberate on an issue, while a resolution is the formally recorded result of a council's deliberation on a matter. A motion may also be used to acknowledge an instruction or a directive of council. For example, a motion may be used to approve meeting minutes or adjourn a meeting. It's important to follow clear and agreed upon procedures at all meetings, and at a minimum ensure that motions are brought forward, they are seconded and duly debated if debate is required, and then voted on. As the CAO, you may be called upon to assist with interpreting the procedural bylaw and ensuring that meeting procedures are properly followed. However, it is the mayor's role to decide points of order. So for motions to be made, a motion must be introduced and tabled. It must be stated in language that fully and clearly expresses the intent of the mover. The motion will not be considered unless it has been seconded. So another councillor must second the motion before the debate can happen. And note here that just because you or a council member seconds the motion does not mean that they are necessarily in support of the motion. Anyone can ask for the motion to be restated prior to debate. Debate will take place on the motion, and the presiding member, so the meeting chair or mayor, will restate the motion and ask for votes in favor and ask for votes against. Finally, the presiding member will announce the result of the vote and any instructions related to the decision that came from the motion. Your procedural bylaw may put into writing additional details regarding motions and debate. Robert's Rules of Order are often followed by elected councils. However, they may be followed, but other meeting procedures may be adopted and enacted by the procedural bylaw instead of Robert's Rules. But at the very least, there will be a motion, a second to that motion, debate, and a vote. The Federation of PEI Municipality website has this quick reference sheet on their website related to various types of motions and points of order and the typical purpose that the motion is used. So without going through each one, we would direct you to review this tip sheet from the website and print it out, and it can be used as a guide for both you as the CAO and council members throughout their meetings. Currently, this resource is found under Tips and Advice on the Federation's website. There are various ways that meeting participants can raise or draw attention to issues that are not necessarily proposed resolutions or a council decisions. Rather, they are points of order, points of information, or inquiry that relate to the ongoings of the meeting. So, for example, a motion may be made to raise a point of order, and a point of order is related to a breach of rules, improper procedure, or breach of established practices. So if a meeting participant was not complying with the procedures set out in the procedural bylaw, another council person may raise a point of order to draw attention to that breach of conduct. A point of information is a way for a member to bring up an additional point or additional piece of information so that other members can make fully informed votes on the matter. A point of inquiry relates to a member asking for clarification in a report to make a better voting decision. And a point of privilege is in part a way for members to raise incorrect information about council that may have been tabled or raised. When we talk about effective meeting practices, we have to address leadership during council meetings or committee meetings. The terms to preside or to chair a meeting refer to the position of authority in the meeting, and the person that opens the meeting keeps the conversations focused, engaged, and balanced. In a meeting chair position, the chair is responsible for recognizing speakers and handling motions, and the same would be true for the presiding member, which is typically the mayor during a regular council meeting. Section 89 addresses the mayor's role and states the mayor, in presiding at meetings of council, shall maintain order and decorum and decide all questions of order. Committee chairs are responsible for leading committee meetings and activities. So making sure that your committee chair and your mayor have a good understanding of their role as the chair or presiding member will help the functioning of council, as effective and strong leadership is absolutely critical to having efficient meetings with good, sound decisions made.